So, welcome to the today's session. And yesterday we were talking about the concept of data validation. While having the discussion about the data validation, the very first thing that I told you was all about how how it is. Not a very good solution to return a string when something went wrong. Thereafter, we were talking about the HTTP status 403. And actually returning HTTP status 403 is definitely okay, but you can say that this is not sufficient. Returning HTTP status 403 is okay, but this is something that is not sufficient because 403 is a common status, you can say that kind of for all failures. Then everyone, we were talking about how exactly we should report the problem. When I was talking about reporting the problem, so there is one structure available. The structure is actually referred as RFC 7807. The RFC 7807 actually define how to report the problem from one machine to another machine. The RFC 7807 talk about the object or JSON object. In the JSON object, practically we are having total 5 fields. The first field is available, that is called type. Second is called title. Third is called status. Fourth is called detail. And fifth is actually referred as the instance. These are the 5 values that are actually available here. Then everyone, you can see one thing, that if I'm talking about the header type that we have to provide, then into the header content type that exactly we have to provide is application/problem plus JSON. We have to provide application/problem plus JSON is what exactly we have to provide. Then if you wanted to represent the same problem object into the string, then to represent the same problem object into the string, there is one class available. The name of the class is called problem detail class. The object of the problem detail class is going to work as the response body, but because it is only response body, so definitely it is actually not having the HTTP status code, and apart from that, HTTP header is also not available in the problem detail object. So as a response, only providing the problem detail again is going to be kind of insufficient, or this is again going to be a kind of incomplete. So how exactly to return a complete HTTP response message? To return a complete HTTP response message, we have to talk about the interface. The name of the interface is referred as error response interface. The error response interface is containing status plus headers plus formatted problem detail body is what exactly it is having. The first thing that it is having is the status. Apart from the status, it is having headers, and apart from the headers, it is having the formatted problem detail body also. Then you can see that it allow any exceptions to expose HTTP error response information. It allow any exception to expose HTTP error response information. So then actually I was talking to you about the complete exception hierarchy. And yesterday when I was talking about the validation to you, so I talked to you about the Spring Boot starter validation API. Apart from the Spring Boot starter validation API, internally it was using the Jakarta validation API. Some annotation that yesterday we have used, we were talking about the not null annotation, not empty annotation, not blank annotation. Apart from that, I was talking to you about @email annotation, @pattern annotation. Then we were talking about the past or present annotation. Then we were talking about @positive annotation, @size annotation, @min, @max, etc. annotations you can use. If any of the object does not satisfy the validation, he is not able to pass the validation, then ultimately we are going to end up with the method argument not valid exception. And when I was talking to you about the method argument not valid exception, then I discuss about the entire hierarchy to you. The very first, it is actually sub interface of error response. So definitely whenever we are throwing the object of the method argument violation exception, so naturally it is containing HTTP status code also, as well as it is containing actually headers also, plus it is containing the problem detail object also. All the three information are available here. This class is actually subclass of bind exception class. The bind exception class is actually inheriting the binding result interface, implementing the binding result interface, and the binding result interface is actually inheriting the error interface. Lot of discussion about the same yesterday we have done, and one example was performed in front of you where I did a lot of customization also. So very first thing, validation part, can I assume that it is clear for all? If you have done assignment also, for the validation part, can I assume that it is clear for all? Yes or no? Now everybody, Then I had given you starting of, actually you can say that Spring Data JPA. When I was talking to you about the starting of the Spring Data JPA, then in the Spring Data JPA, the very first thing I told you is that into the pom.xml, you have to add few dependencies. The very first dependency that actually you have to add into the pom.xml is going to be starter data JPA dependency. The very first dependency that you have to add is going to be Spring Boot starter data JPA dependency is what exactly you have to add. Thereafter, the next dependency that actually you have to add is the MySQL connector dependency. Apart from that, definitely because I'm talking about the REST API, so I have to include the dev tool and the starter web dependency also. This was the first thing that actually you have to add. Then I was talking to you about the entity class. While having the discussion to you about the entity class, I told you that whatever annotation that you have used in the Hibernate, all these annotations are as it is. Whenever you wanted to define a class corresponding to a database table, then you have to use @entity annotation. Similarly, if you wanted to define some different name for the table name rather than the entity class name, then in this condition you have to use @table annotation. Then @id, this is for the primary key. Generated value, into the generated value we are writing that strategy equal to generation type dot identity. When we are writing generation type dot identity, so basically we are talking about the auto increment. Basically we are talking about the auto increment. And let's say everyone that instead of writing that this generated value equal to generation type dot entity, let's say if I'm writing generation type dot auto, can you tell me which strategy will it follow? Can you tell me which strategy it will follow when we are talking about generation type dot auto? No reply so far. By default it follow the strategy that is called sequence. If you are writing generation type dot auto, then in case of the generation type dot auto for the MySQL database, it will follow the strategy that is actually called sequence. Then going to the next portion. So while talking about the next portion, you can see that there is one annotation available that is called column annotation. In the column annotation, nullable we are writing false means definitely null value is not allowed. Unique equal to true means actually value cannot be duplicate. Then we are talking about one more thing that is called marks. So you can see that entity annotation is available. Primary key is also available. Apart from the primary key, we are having the default constructor also. If your class is satisfying all the three properties, then definitely you can say that this is something you can call an entity class. Is that clear? Yes, it is. That's good. Thereafter, we are talking about the next portion. Into the next portion, everyone, we are having the getter setter method, and thereafter creation of the entity class. I was talking to you about the controller, but practically yesterday I actually did nothing in the terms of controller. Practically yesterday I actually did nothing in the terms of controller. So today actually I am going to discuss to you about the Spring Data JPA with a practical example. First of all, in this practical example, the very first thing that actually I am going to do for you is everyone, I wanted to create a proper structure. I wanted to create a proper structure. What is the mean of creating a proper structure is, the example number 24 is all about the Spring Boot web, and already name is sufficient. So this is example number 24. So right now, by looking at this structure, can I say that the base package is com.masaischool.b28 sb201 example number 4? Simple logic. This time, can I say that this is my base package? And in this base package, I am having a sub package that is called controller. I am having one more sub package. The package is called actually entity. Then I wanted to create few more packages. I wanted to create few more packages. This time I am going to follow the complete DAO pattern. And while following the complete DAO pattern, I am talking about creating one more package. And that package is actually called the service package. That package is actually called the service package. After the service package, then I am going to have discussion about one more package. The name of the package is actually called the repository package, or you can call it DAO package also, you can call it repository also. Whatever you wanted to call, you can, no problem. Okay. If I'm talking about the standard system, then you know it very well. Whenever I am talking about the standard system, then the standard system say actually because we are developing the REST API. So definitely, first of all, we are going to send the request using the browser. First of all, we are going to send the request using the browser. What exactly browser will do? We will hit the URL. From hitting the URL, definitely the request will go to the dispatcher servlet. From the dispatcher servlet, the request will go to the handler mapper. From the handler mapper, the request will come to the controller. And when the request is coming to the controller, then there is request method available, or there is request handler method available that will be executed based on the URL pattern. Based on the URL pattern, a specific method of the controller class will be executed, and this method is actually referred as the request handler method. What is request handler method? Is that okay? Yes, it is. This is referred as the request handler method. Then you can say that browser is there, controller is there. After the controller, service is available. After writing the service means actually your controller is actually responsible only for the mapping purpose. But if I'm talking about execution of the business logic, then can I say that execution of the business logic actually will take place into the service layer? Yes or no? Yes, it is. Execution of this is going to be referred at the service layer. Then if I'm talking about the database related operation, then for the database related operation, can I say that database related operation will be on the repository layer? Yes, it is. The database related operation is going to be performed at the repository layer. Okay. Is it a good practice to access repository using the controller? Is it a good practice to access the repository using the controller? Definitely no. Definitely no. Can I say that whenever our request is actually sent from the browser, then first it will go to the controller. To perform the any business logic, actually controller will talk to the service layer. And for any database related operation, the service layer will actually talk to the repository layer. So can I say that this is what exactly standard flow that we have to follow while developing the application? Yes or no? Yes, it is. Definitely we have to follow the same. So first of all, everyone, I'm going to start with the first layer that is called the repository layer. And while talking about the repository layer, can I say this time repository layer will be created using Spring Data JPA? We are not going to create the layer using JDBC or Hibernate. This time we are going to create the same layer using the Spring Data JPA. So how to create actually CRUD operation related code for an entity? How to create CRUD related code for an entity? The very first thing I have to take you to an hierarchy. The very first interface that is related to data JPA. The very first interface that is related to data JPA. The name of the interface is actually called the repository interface. In the Spring Data JPA, the very first interface is available here. The name of the interface is actually called the repository interface. What exactly this repository interface is doing? You can see it is actually central repository marker interface. Can you tell me what is the meaning of marker interfaces? Let me simplify the question. How many methods does a marker interface has? How many methods does a marker interface have? How many methods a marker interface has? Total number of methods that are available in the marker interfaces are actually 0. Total number of methods available in the marker interfaces are actually 0. It captures the domain type to manage as well as domain type's ID type. General purpose is to hold type information as well as being able to discover interface that extends this one during class path scanning. Domain repository extending this interface can selectively expose CRUD method by simply declaring method of the same signature as declared in CRUD repository. Okay. 0 method available. Number of methods available into the repository interface is 0. But it says that first of all, it is a central repository marker interface. The domain repository that is extending this interface can selectively expose CRUD method by simply declaring method of the same signature as defined in the CRUD repository. Not very much useful information available into the repository interface. But if I'm talking about one of the sub interface, can you see that lot of sub interfaces are available? If I'm talking about the total sub interfaces, then we are having CRUD repository, list CRUD repository, list paging and sorting repository, paging and sorting repository, reactive CRUD repository, reactive sorting repository, revision repository, R3 Java 3 repository, RX Java 3 sorting repository. But I am talking about the first sub interface. The name of the sub interface is referred as the CRUD repository interface. Simple logic. Can I say that CRUD repository or CRUD repository interface is the sub interface of repository interface? Yes or no? Can I say that CRUD repository interface is the sub interface of repository interface? Make sense? Make sense? Yes or no? Yes, it is. So if I'm talking about the interface CRUD repository, T is there, ID is there, all super interfaces are there, repository is there, T comma ID is there. Now, first point. This is an interface for generic CRUD operation on a repository of a specific type. This is a interface for generic CRUD operation on the repository of the specific type. Can you see that some methods are available? The very first method that I'm talking to you is the save method. Did you remember in the Hibernate you were having persist method that is used to execute the insert query? Yes. Okay. Second, one more thing that if you remember, when I was talking about the Hibernate, then in the Hibernate, there was no direct method available for update. In Hibernate, whenever actually you wanted to perform the update operation, then to perform the update operation, what you have to do, you have to take the entity into the persistent state by calling the merge method. Now, actually, you are getting the updated reference of the entity that is in the persistent state, that is in the managed state. Now, whenever you are making changes into the entity, then automatically the changes are getting reflected into the database. Did you remember this? This was the update operation at that time. This was the update operation at that time. And right now, actually, you can see that there is no method available named as update. There is no method available named as update here. But if I'm talking about the save method, then keep in mind that the save method of the CRUD repository interface is used to perform the operation such that it is capable to perform the insert operation also. It is capable to perform the update operation also. The combination of insert plus update is actually referred as the upsert operation. Please take a look at the chat. Please take a look at the chat. And how exactly it will be decided whether it is going to be an insert operation or it is going to be a update operation. So simple logic. If primary key is not available into the entity, if primary key is not available into the entity, then it is going to be insert operation. Otherwise, it is going to be an update operation. So can I say that availability of the primary key is the deciding factor? Yes or no? If let's say that no existing primary key value is available into the entity object, then definitely it will be insert operation. If existing primary key value is already available into the entity object, then it is going to be a update operation. So keep in mind there is no separate method available. The save method is going to perform the insert operation plus update operation both. So see, it saves a given entity. It uses the return instance for further operation for the same operation that might have the changed entity instance completely. How it can be? For example, everyone, let's say that if I'm talking about the entity that is called student entity. For example, let's say that if I'm talking about the entity and the name of the entity is called the student entity. In case of the student entity, you should always keep one thing into the mind. Can I say that this value is going to be auto increment? Yes or no? Yes, it is. So when it is auto increment, do I need to specify the value? If it is auto increment, do I need to specify the value? Answer is no, definitely I do not have to specify the value. Automatically value will be taken by the database. So because value will be computed by the database, value will be inserted by the database, I am not providing the value for the roll number. So can I say that the entity that I am going to save, that entity does not contain roll number? Yes or no? The entity that I wanted to save into the database, the entity object will not have ID value for the roll number. But once you are executing the save operation, using the save operation, automatically value for the roll number will be computed, and that value will be automatically generated and inserted into the database. Now, you can see that if I'm talking about the return type, then the return type is again going to be of entity type or its subtype. The return type is going to be of entity type or its subtype. Means actually we are in the after the save method, we are going to get an entity such that the student entity this time is going to have the value for the roll number also. Clear? Yes or no? What is the use of save operation? Is that clear? Because you are getting the updated entity as a return value from the save method. If you wanted to save multiple entities at the same time, then definitely you can pass a list of entity also. You can pass a set of entity also. You can pass actually collection object here, but not map. But not map. So first method I discussed to you is all about the save method. Second method I discussed to you is all about the save all method. When I am discussing the save and save all method, then insert operation plus update operation both are done. In the category of DML statement, if I'm talking about the delete operation, in case of the delete operation, you can see that there is one method available. The name of the method is called the delete by ID method. What exactly the meaning of the ID is? ID here is nothing but it is just a placeholder for your primary key column. ID is a actually refer to your primary key column. So for example, let's say for the student entity, if I'm writing delete by ID, and into the delete by ID, if I wanted to delete a student whose roll number is 1, then can I say that here I have to pass 1 as a parameter? Is that clear? This is what actually delete by ID is. Method that you have to use is the delete by ID. The ID means primary key column. So whatever value you are passing, according to this value, automatically it will fetch the information and write. Is that clear? Then everyone, you can see that one more method is available, that is called delete all by ID. In case of delete all by ID, whatever ID is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 20, 1000, 2000, whatever IDs that you wanted to delete, you can integrate here also. Then if I'm talking about one more method is available, that is called delete all method. If I'm talking about the delete all method, can you see that this delete all method is not performing the deletion on the behalf of primary key, but actually performing the deletion on the behalf of entity object. Is that okay? It is performing the deletion on the behalf of entity object. So if your entity is already available in the persistent context, then definitely then entity will be deleted from the persistent context as well as from the database. If you wanted to delete all the entry at once, then to delete all the entry at once, there is one method available. The name of the method is called delete all method. So discussion about the insert plus update operation is done. Discussion about the delete operation is done. If I'm talking about the find operation, then in case of the find operation, you can see that one method is available that is called the find all method. In case of the find all method, it is going to provide you all the entries from the table. Is that okay? It is going to provide you all the entries from the table. And if I'm talking about the return type, then return type is the iterable. If return type is a iterable, then definitely later on, I have to downcast the same either to a list or I have to downcast the same either to a set or to a queue. Yes or no? Because only this structure for actually supports the iteration. Then if I'm talking about the next method, that is find by ID method. In case of the find by ID method, if you wanted to find out information on the behalf of multiple IDs, then also you can. If I'm talking about the next method, that is called find by ID method, ID is available there, optional is available there. This time, can you see that it is going to find out a single entity from the given ID? It is going to find out a single entity from the given ID. So all these methods are available here. Now, which interface is the sub interface of CRUD repository interface? Which interface is the sub interface of CRUD repository interface? Can you please tell me the name? Is that is list CRUD repository interface? Yes, it is. So if I'm talking about the list CRUD repository interface, then in case of the list CRUD repository interface, you can see that public interface list CRUD repository interface is available. It is extending CRUD repository and it is available since version 3.0. It is available since version 3.0 of Spring JPA. Now, talking about further parts. Into the further parts, can you see that find all method is available here also with the return type list, and find all method is available here also with the return type iterable? Yes or no? Yes, it is. If I'm talking about the iterable and the list, can I say that iterable is the super type? But if I'm talking about the list, then list is referred as the subtype. Yes or no? Yes, it is. Similarly, there is method available that is called find all by ID method. The return type of find all by ID method is going to be list of T. The same thing you can see that find all by ID method is available here. And in case of the find all by ID method, we are having the iterable also. Is that also okay? Is that also okay? Similarly, everyone, there is actually one more method available. The name of the method is called save all method. The save all method is again taking the iterable of entity, but if I'm talking about the return type, then the return type available is list. So just only the difference is that if I'm talking about the CRUD repository interface, then the CRUD repository interface is actually providing you return type that is the iterable. But if I'm talking about the list CRUD repository interface, then the list CRUD repository interface provide the return type in the form of list. So can I say that list CRUD repository is actually providing the return value in a specific form rather than the general form? Yes or no? Super type is always considered as the general type and subclass is always considered as the specific type. Okay. Here actually just I wanted to listen from your side. You can see that actually if I'm talking about the list CRUD repository interface, then the list CRUD repository interface is overriding the method from the super interface. And while overriding the method from the super interface, what it is doing, instead of using the super type as a return type, it is actually using subtype as a return type. First question, can you call it overriding? In the method signature, return type is not exactly same. So I am asking you, can you call it method overriding? Can you call it method overriding? Answer is no, which is completely wrong. Which is completely wrong. Have you listened about this thing? Have you listened about this thing that I mentioned on the chat? That is covariant return type. Well, silence on the batch. Hardly one or two replies are there. If I'm talking about the covariant return type, so covariant return type always says that whenever you are overriding the method from the superclass, either you have to keep the same return type or you have to keep the subtype as a return type, but you cannot use super type as a return type. Getting my point? You can use same type as a return type, you can use subtype as a return type at the time of overriding, but you cannot use super type as a return type. So this is complete case of method overriding. And this time, along with the method overriding, it is talking about the concept of covariant return type. Is that clear? Yes, it is. So whenever somebody is asking you what is the mean of covariant return type, is directly you can take this example. You can specify that CRUD repository is one interface available. List CRUD repository is another interface available. It is actually overriding the find all method, find all by ID method and save all method. But it is, instead of using iterable as a return type, it is using list as a return type. And we know it very well that list is the subtype of iterable. So this is a case of method overriding. And this is something we can say that use of method overriding with a covariant return type. Is that okay? Proceeding further. Okay, sir. So list CRUD repository is also available. Below the list CRUD repository, is there any interface available? below the list CRUD repository, is there any interface available? Answer is no. Answer is no. Now let me do one job. For example, everyone, directly I am pressing C. On the STS, I am directly telling you one short key by which you can see source code of any Java class that is attached to your project. The short key is Control plus Shift plus T. The short key is Control plus Shift plus T. Into the Control plus Shift plus T, I am talking about one interface. The name of the interface is actually called the JPA repository interface. The name of the interface is called JPA repository interface. So you can see that public interface JPA repository extends list CRUD repository interface. This interface inherits list CRUD repository interface. And if I'm talking about the list CRUD repository interface, it is inheriting repository interface. The repository interface is inheriting the repository interface. So this hierarchy is clear that repository is available at the top. Below the repository, we are having the CRUD repository. Below the CRUD repository, we are having list CRUD repository. And below the list CRUD repository, we are having JPA repository interface. Is that clear? Yes, it is. Into the JPA repository interface, explicitly you are having facility to flush. You are having facility to save and flush method is also available. You can delete in the batches also. Apart from that, some additional methods are also available like get reference by ID. Kind of methods are available here, and you can perform the deletion using the example also. What exactly this example is? If time permit, then I will tell you. If the time permit, then actually I will tell you. So overall, the point is that everyone, if I'm talking about all that hierarchy, so repository is there, below the repository, simple. CRUD repository is there, below the CRUD repository, list CRUD repository is there, and below the list CRUD repository, we are having the JPA repository. Okay, into this JPA repository, if I'm talking about the first parameter, can I say that the first parameter is of generic type? Can I say that the first parameter is of generic type? Answer is yes. Can I say that second parameter is also of the generic type? ID is not a data type. ID is not a data type. So keep in mind that both the parameters are actually the generic parameters. Both the parameters are actually generic parameters. So this time, can I say that JPA repository is an interface that is taking two generic parameters? What exactly these two generic parameters are? If I'm talking about the first generic parameter, then the first generic parameter refer to the entity class name. The first generic parameter actually refer to the entity class name, and the second generic parameter refer to the data type of primary key column. The second generic parameter refer to the data type of primary key column. In case of entity, can I say that I have to write down the same data type here that I have to use for the variable that is annotated with ID annotation? Yes or no? Simple logic. Here in place of ID, I have to write down the same data type that I have used for the field that is annotated with ID. Is that okay? So this is what actually I have to do. So very first job that actually I have to do in this thing is everyone, I have to create a sub interface of JPA repository interface. If I'm creating a sub interface of the JPA repository interface, then can I say that method for save and method for insert and update operation, method for delete operation, method for find operation, it is automatically available to me from the parent interface with a proper signature. Yes or no? Clear? Absolute silence. I don't know what is going on. I don't think I am teaching some rocket science here. So first of all, I'm going to create an interface. The name of the interface that actually I'm writing is, let's say the name of the interface is called student repository interface. You can give any name. You can give any name. If I'm talking about the name of its parent interface, then the name of the parent interface that actually I'm writing is JPA repository interface. If I'm talking about the JPA repository interface, then for the JPA repository interface, first parameter T. If I'm talking about the first parameter T, then definitely the first parameter T is going to be of type student. And if I'm talking about the roll number was actually annotated with ID annotation and the data type of roll number was integer. So this is what exactly I have to write down. Is that okay? Is that okay? Yes, it is. Now actually listen one more thing. The thing that actually I'm going to listen, then the one more thing that actually I wanted to take you into the notice. If I'm talking about the student repository is a sub-interface of JPA repository. JPA repository is sub-interface of list CRUD repository, then CRUD repository, then repository interface. If I'm talking about all that condition, then in all that condition, I wanted to just tell you one thing. Do I need to create a implementing class of a student repository? For the method definition, do I need to create a implementing class of student repository? So actually the good news is that no need to write implementing class of student repository interface. No need to write down implementing class of student repository interface. And why exactly no need to write down? Because Spring Data JPA will create actually implementing class of this interface by itself. The object of implementing class will be the object of IMPLI. The object of implementing class, implementing IMPLEMEN, spelling mistakes. So first point, no need to write implementing class of a student repository interface because Spring Data JPA will create the implementing class of this interface by itself, and the object of implementing class will be actually registered to the Spring container. And because it is available to the Spring container, so definitely it can be used with auto wiring. It can be actually used with the auto wiring. Is that point okay? You don't have to write down anything about that interface. No. Okay. One more question that is often asked in the interview. See, this is first question. Do we need to create actually the implementation of student repository? Answer is no. Next question it is asking, then who is actually responsible for creating the implementation? Please never say Spring container. Please never say Spring container. You should always say that if actually Spring Data JPA framework is responsible for creating the implementation. Okay. Implementation is created by Spring Data JPA. So how exactly we will use that? Do we know the class name? Answer is no. But you can see that whenever it is creating the implementing class, the object of that implementing class is automatically registered with the Spring container. Because it is automatically registered with the Spring container, so let's say if you are creating a reference variable of student repository in some class, let's say that you are creating a reference variable of student repository, and if you are here writing the auto wired, then automatically Spring container will say, okay, implementation of this interface is available to me. The object is already available to me. So definitely by using the auto wiring, this dependency can be injected, and later on in our program, we can use the same object. Is that clear? Yes, it is. So always keep in mind, this is one common interview question that is asking. Apart from that, one more common interview question is that if I'm talking about one of the stereotype annotation, then one of the stereotype annotation is called at the rate repository annotation. Yes, if the stereotype annotation, that is at the rate repository annotation, is available, so the question arises, do we need to write down the at the rate repository annotation with the interface? So simple answer is no. Actually, this is optional. Actually, this is optional. Why this is optional? Because if I'm talking about the purpose of the stereotype annotation, then can I say that the purpose of the stereotype annotation is auto detection? Yes or no? The purpose of stereotype annotation is auto detection. When we wanted to let the Spring container create and manage Spring Bean, then we have to use stereotype annotation. Remember? When you want a Spring container to create object plus manage object, then you have to use stereotype annotation. But if As a programmer, you wanted to create the object of some bean class or object of some class, but you want let Spring container to manage that bean. In this condition, you have to use @bean annotation. Remember, I told you this thing, I think 2 or 3 times. In case of stereotype annotation, create plus management will be done by the Spring container. In case of @bean annotation, creation will be done by us. But if I'm talking about the management, then definitely management will be done by the container. Management will be done by the container. So this time when I am talking about @repository annotation, so very first case is, can you create object of an interface? No, definitely object is going to be created of a class. Object is going to be created of a class. Now I am asking, do we are creating implementing class of this repository interface? No. So definitely, because Spring Data JPA will itself create the implementation. So Spring Data JPA, when it is creating the implementation of this interface, then the implementing class is automatically annotated with @repository interface annotation. Because it is automatically annotated with @repository annotation, so it is available for auto wiring. So if you are using @repository annotation here, then it is okay. If you are not using, still it is okay. Logical reason is clear. Okay, so this is one part that actually we have to done. Optional it is, because optional it is sufficient, I think. It is optional here, will be good to write down. Okay, first part is done. First part is done. So repository completed. I have done with the repository layer. So if I'm talking about the CRUD operation that I wanted to perform on the student entity, can't you see that this is actually turning extremely easy in case of Spring Data JPA? Just what I have to do, I have to create a sub interface of JPA repository interface. All the implementations, all the methods are available from the parent class, parent interfaces, and the implementing class will be generated by the Spring Data JPA. So practically, I actually do not have to do anything. Is that okay? Is that okay? That's good. That's good. Now, so one thing is done. That thing is actually referred as the repository layer. After the repository layer, now I'm talking about the next layer. The next layer is called the service layer. Into the service layer, again, I wanted to create one interface. The name of the interface is actually we are calling is going to be the student service interface. The name of the interface that I'm calling is the student service interface C. The communication flow that recently I told you is that our browser will send the request to the controller, controller will send the request to the service, service will send the request to the repository. So definitely to access the services of the repository, we need an object of repository into the service layer. Yes or no? We need an object of the repository at the service layer. Yes, we need. Okay. So one interface is available. The name of the interface is actually called the student service. Into the student service, I wanted to write down some, let's say that code. The code that I wanted to write down here is, for example, one method is available. The name of the method that actually we are writing is public. The return type of the method we are writing is student. And thereafter, I am writing name of the method is add student method. If I'm talking about the parameter, then definitely parameter here is student st. This is one method that is available here. Definitely, this method is all about adding a student. This method is all about adding a student. Okay. I hope you people know how to write down the Java doc. Yes or no? I hope you people know how to write down the Java doc. Yes or no? Yes, it is. So this method is to add a student in the, this method is to add a student in the database, or add a student will be good to write down. If I'm talking about the parameter st, then definitely this is a student object containing the student object con containing details of the student, containing details of the student to be saved in the database, or to be saved. If I'm talking about the return value, then definitely return value is going to be a student object that contains the saved details, that contains the saved detail. So can I say that it will have actually value for roll number also? Yes or no? Can I say it will have value for roll number also? Yes, it is. Okay. Similarly, if I'm talking about the method, then one of the method that I'm writing is public list of student. And we are talking about, let's say that view all student is the name of the method that actually I am writing. And if I'm talking about this method, then in this method, definitely you can see one thing, that this method is to get list of all students. And if I'm talking about the return value, then return value is going to be definitely a student, or you can say that it is going to be list of students is what exactly we are going to have. Similarly, similarly, if I'm talking about, let's say that I wanted to update I wanted to update. Then to perform the update operation, let's say that I'm talking about next method. The name of the next method I'm calling is the update student method. Into the update student method, let's say that the thing that I'm taking is, the first thing I'm accepting is the roll number. And the second thing that I wanted to update is, let's say we are talking about updation of the marks. Let's say we are talking about updation of the marks. See, how exactly I am writing the Java doc. There is no short key to create a Java doc. Just slash symbol. After the slash symbol, write down the 2 times star symbol and then just press enter. Automatically, it will be expanded by the STS. Is that okay? But make sure to write down the method signature first. First, you write down the method signature. After writing the method signature, slash 2 times star and then hit enter. Automatically standard format of Java doc will be generated. Here actually you can add whatever description that you wanted to add. So this method is to update the marks of a student based on the roll number. This method is to update the marks of the student based on the roll number. If I'm talking about the roll number, then definitely this is an integer value for the roll number. If I'm talking about the next part, then the next part is definitely integer value. Integer value for the, you can say that updated marks. You can write down the data type also, it sometime help, but actually in the method signature, it is already available, so no problem. So if I'm talking about the return type, then the return is going to be a student object, that is updated one. A student object that is updated one. So update method is created similar to the update method. Can I create the delete method also? Yes, I can create the delete method. I can create the delete method also. Okay. But actually the question is that everyone, if I'm talking about the delete method of the CRUD repository, what is the return type of delete method? What is the return type of delete method? Void. Is it good to return void from a controller? Is it good to return void from a controller? Answer is no. Answer is definitely no. It is not good to return void from the controller. So let's say that I'm talking about returning a string message, and for the string message, let's say that I'm creating a method and name of the method is going to be, let's say that delete student by roll is what actually we are writing. Here the pointer that I'm writing is going to be integer roll. Then I'm writing slash star slash and 2 times star. So we are writing that this method is to actually delete a student by roll number. If I'm talking about roll number, then definitely integer value, and this is actually roll number of the student to be deleted. And if I'm talking about the return value string, actually string value, which is a, actually you can say that success message, which is actually a success message. So 4 operations so far I have written for you. One operation I have written is for the add student. Second I have written is for the view all student. Third I have written is for the update student. Fourth I have written is for the delete student by roll number. Okay. One more thing that I can do. Can I get the student by the roll number also? Yes, I can get the student by the roll number also. So if I'm talking about getting the student by the roll number, so we are writing, let's say that view student by roll number is something that actually we are writing. And here the thing that I have to pass is going to be integer roll. So for example, I am writing slash 2 times star. After writing slash 2 times star, we are writing here that this method is to add. This method is to get student details by roll number or by roll. Parameter rule, then definitely parameter rule is again nothing going to be special. It is an integer value that is for the roll number of the student. And if I'm talking about the return value, then definitely return value is the student object for this roll number. Clear, everybody? All these Java docs I have written, they are sufficient. For the further methods I will not write down due to unavailability of the time. But why exactly specifically I have covered Java docs here? See, many of the time it happens that in the placements when scholars are going to submit their assignments, they create the entire code. Their code is working just perfect. But if I'm talking about Java doc, they are always missing. They are always missing. And when actually into the company your assignment open, it is getting rejected immediately by saying that you don't know how to write down a neat and clean code. For the sake of time saving, definitely we are making adjustment also, you are making adjustment also. But whenever you are writing any assignment for the placement, please make sure to write down the comments there also. Is that clear? Because using these Java documents, actually a developer of one layer will be able to use functionality of the other layer. So this is what you should write down. And one more common mistake that scholars are making. Sometime, instead of writing the implementation into the interface, they are writing the comment in the implementing class. Now, one common sense based thing I am asking you. Let's say I am available on the controller and I wanted to use the services of the service layer. If I wanted to use the services of the service layer, then option number one, I should use interface of the student service. Option number two, I should use the reference variable of implementing class. Which one is better? Which one is better? First or second? You have already gone through the DAO pattern. If I wanted to use services of service layer into the controller, option number one, I should use reference variable of student service. Option number two, I should use reference variable of implementing class. Which option is better? Please tell me. Option number one is always better, because in future, let's say that if you wanted to write down another implementing class, then you do not have to make changes in the controller. Getting my point? Today, if I'm having only one implementation of the student service, then it doesn't make a difference. But let's say if I'm having three implementation of an interface, and if you are using reference variable of the implementing class, then don't you think that just to change the implementation, you have to make changes in the controller class also? Yes or no? So this will be a completely nonsense. So never go for the reference variable of the implementing class. Always use the reference variable of the interface there. Getting my point? Yes or no? And whenever you are using the reference variable of the interface, so definitely whatever comment that you have written here into the interface, only they will be visible. If you are writing comment into the implementing class, they will not be accessible at the controller layer, because I am using the reference variable of the interface. Getting my point? That's why. So these are the common mistakes that I have observed in the placement assignments also. So you are requested not to repeat such kind of mistakes that your seniors have already done. So please do not make such mistakes. Then everyone, we are talking about the further parts. And while talking about the further parts, okay, sir, on the service layer, we have written something. Can we write down the implementing class? Yes, we have to write down the implementing class. So to write down the implementing class, I have to create a class. Will it be reasonable to use the class name student service IMPL? Yes or no? Yes, it is. I wanted to use the interface. The interface that I wanted to use is the student service interface. Into the student service interface, we are actually implementing, then no problem. Thereafter, directly I am clicking on the finish. Once I am clicking on the finish, mistake. I was supposed to create a class, but by mistake, instead of class, I have created an interface. Okay, it's okay. So here I have to use the implements keyword, and then I wanted to override all the abstract method. First of all, if I'm talking about overriding all the abstract method, then see, I am overriding all the abstract method just into the one shot. I am overriding all the abstract method just into the one shot. When I'm overriding the abstract method into the one shot, in this condition, just you can see that default implementation is created by the STS automatically. I do not have to take care. But first question I am asking you, to perform the operation on the service layer, I need an object of the repository interface. Yes or no? I need an object of the repository interface. So very first thing that I'm going to do is, let's say that I'm talking about the private student repository, and let's say that I am talking about student repository is the name of the reference variable that actually I am writing. Private student repository is the name of the reference variable that actually I am writing. Thereafter, because I wanted to actually go for the auto wiring, then because I wanted to go for the auto wiring, so can I use @auto wired here? Yes or no? This is called actually auto wiring using field. This is what exactly referred as the auto wiring using the field. So you can definitely use the auto wiring using the field, but this is something that is actually not a very recommended practice. This is not a very recommended practice. Very first question I am asking you, if I'm talking about the student repository, can I say that it is a kind of mandatory dependency? Yes or no? Can I say this is a kind of mandatory dependency? Yes, it is. It's a mandatory dependency. And whenever we are talking about the mandatory dependency, then isn't it good to talk about the constructor injection always? Yes, it is. Why actually I am discouraging using the field injection? I am discouraging using the field injection because first of all, it is slow. Second, internally, actually the Spring container uses the reflection API to access the private variable, which is not according to the object-oriented convention. So field injection should always be the last choice. Field injection should always be the last choice. If it is mandatory dependency, then go for the constructor injection. If it is optional dependency, then go for the setter injection. If neither of the thing is working for you, then go for the field injection. Getting my point? Clear? Because this one is actually a slow practice. This one is actually a slow practice. Okay, listen. Now I wanted to generate the constructor from the field. When I'm generating the constructor from the field, so you can see that constructor is actually generated here. If the constructor is actually generated here, then very simple question I am asking you, how many parameters this constructor is having? How many parameters this constructor is having? Only one parameter. Okay. Do I need to use auto-wired annotation? Do I need to use auto-wire annotation? Answer is no. Always keep in mind, if your class is actually having only a single parameterized constructor, then in case of single parameterized constructor, use of auto-wire annotation is optional. I hope you remember this point. When I talk to you about the auto wiring, I mentioned this thing especially, that if your class is having only single parameter constructor, then in case of use of @auto wire is optional. If you wanted to use, you can. If you do not wanted to use, then nobody is going to force you. Is that okay? So if you are using auto wire, then it is okay. If you are not using auto wire, still it is not going to hurt you. The same thing I discussed to you when I was talking about the auto wiring, and possibly it was all about the content on the day number, I think 4. Yeah, it was in the content in the day number 4. So let me open the comment of the content of the day number 4 into the content of the day number 4, or possibly in the day number 2. This thing I already told to everyone. So just a second. Auto wire, auto wire. Constructor injection is there, setter injection is there. Might be where I have written. Sometime actually I used to write them in the code also. Sometime I used to write down the into the code also. So possibly I have written the code, maybe. Okay. So optional, it is here. Why? Because if a class has only one constructor with a single parameter. Optional it is because if a class has one constructor only with a single parameter, then use of @auto wire is actually is optional. Is that okay? Comment I have written. Now it will be okay, everybody? Yes, it is. For a single parameter, there is no need to do that. Okay. Now, actually, just one thing that I wanted to find out. The only thing that I wanted to find out is, everyone, what is the name of the class? If I wanted to find out the name of the class, then definitely, can I write down this code? To get the name of the implementing class, can I write down this code? Yes, it is. So this is the name of implementing class is. Shall I once execute this? Just actually to see if the object is created or not, etc., etc. Yes or no? This is good. Okay. One more thing that I have to use is I have to use the stereotype annotation here. Yes or no? I have to use the stereotype annotation here. Otherwise, service layer will not be automatically initialized at the controller part. Service layer will not be initialized automatically at the controller part. Okay. So service layer, just a dummy implementation I have created so far. Repository is created, service interface is created, then service IMPL is created. After creating the service IMPL, then we are talking about the next part. And the next part is actually called the controller part. If I'm talking about the controller part, then again at the controller part, do I need to perform the auto wiring? Yes or no? Again, I have to use what? I have to use the things that is all about the student service. Thereafter, we are talking about the student service also. Then you can see one thing. Then you can see one thing. Then I'm talking about the public student controller I am writing. And while writing the student controller, again, same logic I'm going to repeat here. This dot student service equal to student service. Is that clear, everyone? Is that clear? Again, if you wanted to use AutoWire, then it is good. If you do not wanted to use AutoWire, there is no offense. There is no offense. So right now, let's say that when I'm going to run the Spring Boot application, then automatically stereotype annotations will do the job. So let me once run this application. I'm not going to use actually web browser this time. I'm not going to use web browser this time because what I wanted to do, I just wanted to see whether I am going right or not. So let me do the right click, run as. I'm talking about run the same as a Spring Boot application. And when it is running in the form of Spring Boot application, is there any exception? There is no exception available. Means everything is going fine. First of all, everyone, can you see one thing that actually automatically it is creating one table? The name of the table is called student table. Yes or no? Why this is happening? Because actually CRUD repository interface is there. I have created what? Subinterface of JPA repository interface. The name of the interface is student repository. Into the student repository, actually, I am using the entity class as the first positional parameter. Remember? Yes or no? Simple one. And because I am using the entity class as the first positional parameter, so definitely it has to create the database structure. So simple point, creating the entity class itself is not sufficient. When you are creating the repository interface for the entity class, then tables will be created. Is that okay? Second thing is there, okay, using the first three query, definitely we are creating the tables. And after creating the tables, can you see that it is showing the name of the implementing class? And this is actually the name of the class which actually implement the student repository interface. Yes or no? This is name of the class that actually implement the student repository interface. And if you take a look at the name, then the name is containing the word that is called the proxy. The name is actually containing a word and the word is called proxy word. Why exactly I am talking about the proxy word here specifically? So actually in the Java programming, in the Java programming, just a minute, let me actually once copy paste this output. Let me just once copy paste this output. Oh, dev tool dependency is very active. Whenever I am making even a minor change, it is detecting and restarting the application again. Let me stop this once. So if I'm talking about the output, then output you can see that the output coming here is that the name of the implementing class is jdk.proxy4.$proxy107 is the name that actually we are receiving. Now one simple point that I wanted to ask you. Have you ever listened about the name of proxy classes? Have you ever listened about the term that is called proxy class? So keep in mind, keep in mind, keep in mind. In Java programming, we are having a concept. That concept is called the proxy class. So a class that is generated dynamically. A class that is generated dynamically is actually referred as the proxy class. So if I'm talking about this class that is jdk.proxy4.$proxy107, this is again a proxy class because this class is not created by us. This class is actually generated dynamically by the Spring JPA. Is that clear? This is another question. Sometimes they are asking in case of Spring Data JPA, they might ask you what is actually proxy classes. Have you ever used the proxy class, or can you tell any example about the proxy class? So from here directly you can answer. Is that okay? Is that okay? Let me actually comment this auto wire annotation here. Thereafter, I am coming to the controller class, and into the controller class also I am doing the same job. Let's say that I am removing the auto wire annotation from here also. Both annotations actually I have removed. Then let me actually once again run this example just to check if everything is working okay or not. So again, I am writing Alt plus Shift plus X plus B. And when I'm writing Alt plus Shift plus X plus B, the servers are getting started. Everything is working perfectly okay. The message is not printed. Why exactly the message is not printed? Because I have commented this. But can you see that Hikari pool is completely initialized? Answer is yes. Can you see that JTA platform is initialized? Answer is yes. Database is because already created. That's why queries are not executed this time. So overall, if you are using at the rate AutoWire annotation, then it is okay. If you are not using at the rate AutoWire annotation, still it is going to work perfectly for you. Is that okay? Is that okay, everyone? So can you see that Spring Data JPA is actually very flexible, yet it is very transparent, and it actually internally uses a lot of concept of core Java. So how important JA111 is if you wanted to understand the internal structure of Spring. I hope this is clear for everyone. So see, if I'm talking about the show tables, in case of the show tables, we are having only one table that is called ST. Let me drop this table. So we are writing that is drop table ST. And when we are writing drop table ST thereafter, again, once again, I am running this application. So once again, when I'm going to run this application, then you can see queries are available, class name is available. Yes, simple, simple. So this was just actually to verify you that at the rate AutoWire annotation is actually not compulsory when you are having only a single constructor. AutoWire annotation is not compulsory when actually you are having a single constructor, and when you are talking about the field injection, then the field injection is the most discouraged practice. Going to the next part. Okay, well, it's good time to write down the implementation. And if I wanted to write down the implementation into the student service IMPL, then definitely you will see a very, very simple thing to us. And the simple thing that actually you are going to tell us is that, sir, we are already having the object of the student repository. Using the student repository, can we call the save method? Yes, you can call the save method. What parameter exactly do I need to pass? I need to pass the parameter that is called, the parameter that I need to call is going to be the st parameter, and after the st parameter we are writing that one. Is that okay? Is that okay? Yes, it is. Thereafter, I am talking about the next part. Similar to that, everyone, if I am talking about, let's say I wanted to get the student by the roll number. Well, first of all, I'm talking about the view all student. If I'm talking about the view all student, then in case of the view all student, can I directly call the find all method? Can I directly call the find all method? Yes or no? Simple. Similar to that, if I am, okay, so initially the two operations are there that I have implemented. Remaining operation also I will implement for you, but just, it will be good to take example of these add operation as well as for view all operation. And I wanted to verify whether Spring Data JPA is working properly or not. So first thing, I'm in the student controller. When I am available into the student controller, then in case of the student controller, I am writing, let's say, public. What is the return type of the method? The return type of the method is student, and I'm talking about the add student. This time, the student data will be available to me using the body of the message. Because the student data will be available to me using the body of the message in such condition, don't you think that actually I have to write down the request body annotation? Yes or no? I have to write down the student body request body annotation. Second, because I wanted to add a resource. So what do you think? Shall I use post mapping option number 1, put mapping option number 2, patch mapping option number 3? Which option shall I choose? Definitely post mapping is something that actually I have to always use. And if I'm talking about the URL pattern, then definitely URL pattern is going to be slash students. Okay. Then I'm writing here student service. Again, I'm calling about the add student method, and whatever value it is providing me, I'm returning the same value as it is this time. Can you see that comment is properly visible to me? Can you see that comment is properly visible to me that I have written into the student service interface? Yes, it is something that is perfectly visible, perfectly available to us. Then everyone, let's say I have taken this comment from here and I'm writing the same comment into the implementing class. I have written the same comment into the implementing class. When I have written the same comment into the implementing class, now anything available at the controller layer? Definitely no. So understand why not to write down the comment into the implementing class, or why to write down the comment at the interface only? Why to write down the comment at the interface only? I hope this is clear for all. So we are available at the student controller. Into the student controller, first I have given the post mapping. Similar to the post mapping, everyone, can I access all the students in one shot? Yes, I can access all the students in the one shot. What type of mapping I have to use? I have to use the get mapping. What will be the return type of the method? The return type of the method will be the list of students. Then if I'm talking about the name of method, the name of the method we can write down is the view all student. Is it going to accept any parameter? Answer is no. If I'm talking about what exactly this method is going to return, so whatever the service method is providing us, we will return all the value as it is. Is that clear? Yes, it is. So get mapping annotation is what I have inherited. So far two endpoints are there that actually I have enabled. The very first input I have enabled is slash student with the post request. And second I have enabled is actually with the get request. Shall I take one example? Yes, it is. So I have to execute this in the form of a Spring application. So I'm executing this. Alt Shift X B is what I'm pressing. After pressing Alt Shift X B, let that be started. And once it is started, proxy class name is already printed here. I will comment this before releasing the code. The rest is your choice. So if I'm talking about the URL pattern here, the type of the request is going to be definitely the post request. And if I'm talking about the URL, into the URL, we are talking about the students. After talking about the students, if I'm talking about the first thing, do I need to mention the roll number? Answer is no. If I'm talking about the name of the student that I'm writing is ABC. And if I'm talking about the next part, then the next part is going to be marks. And for the marks, let's say that I'm writing the value that is called 98. I'm writing the value that is called 98. Any additional header that I wanted to set? Answer is no. Simple body is what exactly I am sending for you. So this time I'm clicking on the send button. When I'm clicking on the send button, can you see automatically roll number is generated? That is one. Yes, it is. Everybody, response is okay. Now just check whether this entry is available into the database or not. To check whether this entry is available into the database or not, we have to write down that is select star from st semicolon. Is our code working perfectly? Yes or no? Perfect. So simple. Similar to that, everybody, if I wanted to add few more entries, then definitely I can add few more entries. So for example, let's say that I'm talking about the user, that is ZYX. And if I'm talking about the user, it is 66. Thereafter, I'm talking about the send method. After talking about the send method, then definitely the value of roll number is 2, value of name is ZXY. So as many number of users as you wanted to add, you can. As many number of users you wanted to add, you can. If you wanted to use the save all method, then definitely you can use the save all method also. No issue in that. So far I have fetched how many entries? 3 entries I have fetched. Then I am talking about the get method. After talking about the get method, do I need to pass anything as a request body? Definitely, because get request does not have the request body. Then everyone, I'm talking about the get request, same URL pattern, clicking on the send button. And when I'm clicking on the send button, can you see we are having the list of student objects? We are having list of students objects. So both the endpoints are working perfect. Both the endpoints are working perfect. Yes or no? Yes, it is. Both the endpoints are 100% working Okay. Thereafter, talking about the further implementations. So when I'm talking about the further implementation, let me stop once. Thereafter, I'm talking about again the student service IMPL. Into the student service IMPL, now I'm writing the implementation of view student by roll number. Can I say that roll number is the primary key? Can I say that roll number is the primary key? So can I use the find by ID method? Answer is yes, I can use the find by ID method. So if I'm talking about the find by ID method, then again I'm writing student repository dot. The name of the method is called find by ID method, and I am passing the roll number here. So if I'm talking about the find by ID method, what is the return type of this method? What is the return type of this method? The return type of this method is actually called the optional. So I am assigning this to a local variable. Okay. How many of you are aware about the optional class? How many of you are aware about the optional class? Okay, very less number of scholars says yes. So if I'm talking about the optional class in Java, optional class is actually nothing. It is providing you facility to contain an object such that object can be an actual object or it can be a null value. Object can be a proper object of any class or it can contain the null value. So can I say that an object of optional class may contain the null value or it can contain the actual object also? Or simple, we can say that object may or may not be present in the object of optional class. So it is a container object which may or may not contain the non-null value. Is that clear? The optional class is a container object which may or may not contain non-null value. Means non-null value may be available or null value may be available. Why exactly this is available? Because it is giving you facility. What facility exactly it is giving you? Can you see that there is one method available called the isPresent method? The isPresent method is just used to check whether a non-null object is available or not. If the non-null object is available, well and good. If it is not available, then it is going to provide you false. Clear? Yes, it is. So see, first actually I am having the object of what? I am having the object of optional. When I am having the object of optional, so I am writing one thing that if optional dot is present, if this part is true. So can I say that you are here means student with the given role exist? Yes or no? You are here means a student with the given roll number exists. If the student with the given roll number exists, then definitely we can return the value. Yes or no? Yes, it is. So how to get the student object? To get the student object, I am writing student st equal to. Then we are writing optional dot get method is what we are calling. Get method is something that actually I am calling. Okay, everybody. If this is not the case, let's say if I'm talking about the else part. When I'm talking about the else part, then can I say that you are here means a student does not exist with the given roll number. Student not exist with the given roll number. Yes or no? Yes, it is. So you are here means student not exist with the given roll number. You are here means student with the given roll number already exists. If this is not the case, then don't you think that it will be better to throw an exception? Don't you think that it will be better to throw an exception? So if I'm talking about throwing an exception, then the very first job that I have to do is I have to create one more package, and that package I will actually create for exception. Pressing Control N, creating one class, the name of the class that first of all I have to create a package. Control N, the very first thing I wanted to create is a package. The name of the package that we are giving is going to be definitely the exception package. Into the exception package, I wanted to create a class. The name of the class I am writing is, let's say, student not found exception. And if I'm talking about the student not found exception, thereafter clicking on the browse and I'm talking about a class, the class is actually referred as the exception class. After talking about the exception class, we are clicking on the finish method. And when we are actually clicking on the finish method, then you can see I have created exception. Then definitely nothing special, just I wanted to override one method. So I wanted to generate constructor from the super class. Only one constructor I wanted to generate, that is variant number 4. Only one constructor I wanted to generate, that is the variant number 4. Is that okay? Clear, everybody? So if you are talking about this exception class is generated, can I create the global exception handler? Yes or no? Yes, it is. And it is good to throw the runtime exception. It is good to throw the unchecked exception. So because you are talking about the unchecked exception, so definitely, it will be good to create a subclass of runtime exception class. Okay, everyone? Because in case of Spring REST API, we are not supposed to throw the checked exception. We have to throw the unchecked exception. So I'm creating a subclass of runtime exception class. Then everyone, talking about the next part. Into the next part, I wanted to write down exception handler. So instead of writing the same code again, just a simple job I am doing. I am taking both the classes from the previous one, then pressing enter. After pressing enter, I am talking about the error details. Into the error details, timestamp is there, message is there, URI is there, let it be as it is. Thereafter, if I'm talking about the next one, that is called the global exception handler. Into the global exception handler, this time I wanted to handle the next type of exception. And the exception that I wanted to handle is student not found. Exception is what exactly I wanted to handle. So copy this part. After copying this part, then we are talking about the pasting this part. After talking about the pasting this part, then actually the next thing is available. First thing, I wanted to get the string message. So to get the message, nothing special. Directly, I can write down ex dot get message. Clear or not, everyone? Exception handler is just completed in one shot. And this time, can I say that it will be good to return the status that is called not found 404 because resource is not available. So exception handling is one more part that actually we have done. Okay, you are here means actually a student does not exist. If a student does not exist, then definitely you should throw the exception. So how to throw the exception? To throw the exception, we should write down throw new student not found exception. And when we are writing student not found exception, so we are writing that no student exists for given roll number. No student exists for the given roll number. Same implementation everyone. Just actually slightly inversion I am doing. And this time there is no need to write down the else clause. Is that okay? Please check this code. Please check this code. Some mistake here. Shall I proceed further? If this code is clear to you. That's nice. Okay. So this time everybody, we have written some 4 to 5 lines of code. So far, we have written some 4 to 5 lines of code, but actually there is no need to write down this 4 to 5 lines of code. You can see that there is one method available. The name of the method is called actually or else throw method. The name of the method is called or else throw method. First of all, everyone, if I'm talking about the return type of this method, can I say that the return type of this method is actually a generic parameter, and in our case, it will be a student object. Yes or no? In our case, it will be a student object. Make sense? And because in our case, it is going to be a student object. So overall, what exactly or else throw is doing? Or else throw actually says the one thing that into the optional object. If a not null value is available, if a non-null value is available, then return that value. Is that clear? Or else throw says one thing that if the value is available, please return the value. Option number 2, if the value is not available, then throw the exception. Clear? If the value is not available, then please throw the exception. This is what exactly it is telling. I hope this is clear for all. Yes, it is. Clear? Great. Then everyone, so the code that actually you are writing the entire one, no need to write down that long amount of code. The only thing that actually you should do is entire code that I am writing is, you should write down optional dot or else throw. Into the or else throw, what exactly we are doing? We are writing here new, and we wanted to create an object of the student that is called student not found exception. Into the student not found exception, we are talking about this part. and here I am writing the return keyword. Then the remaining entire code I am making comment. So don't you think that this is comparatively a better choice? This is comparatively a better choice. So if I'm talking about the or else through method, so first number point, I'm talking about the behavior. If non-null value is available in the optional object, then the non-null object will be returned. Is that okay? If non-null value is available in the optional object, then the non-null object will be returned. Second number case. Second number case. If null value is available in the optional object, then exception will be thrown. Is that clear? Is that clear? I hope this comment will help you, everyone. Okay. And if I'm talking about the parameter that I'm passing into the or else row, can I say that I'm passing the implementation of a supplier such that the implementation of supplier is actually creating a new object of the student not found exception? Did you remember supplier, etc.? Consumer, supplier, predicate, function, functional interface, by consumer, operator, by unary operator, binary operator, by function. The batch is turning so silent, like I'm discussing about the economic condition of India, specifically in the IT sector. Let me show you the demonstration. Let me show you the demonstration of the view student by roll number. Alt Shift X B. Now coming to Mr. Postman again, and I forgot to create the URL endpoint in the controller method. I forgot to add the parts in the controller method. So just actually let me complete the controller part, then we will go for a break. Let me go for a controller part, then we will go for a break. So this time everyone, can I take the roll number using path variable? Yes or no? So I have to use at the rate path variable here, then I have to pass the value that is called integer roll number here. And after passing the integer roll number here, we are writing a student service. Into the student service, I forgot to create the method. Copy. So let me go to the student service. We have to create one method. This time everyone, I'm not, oh, I'm having already the method. Already I'm having the method. The name of the method is called view student by roll number. Method is already available there. So what is wrong with you, dear? Do we have implementation? We are having implementation also. So what mistake I'm making? Oops, return type is wrong. Return type is wrong. Now is it okay? Yeah. So first of all, request will come here. Thereafter, we will talk about the view student method. Then we will go for the implementation. And from the implementation, then actually complete implementation is available here. So Alt Shift X B. Yeah. Coming to Postman. And this time, initially, I'm talking about /student/1. When I'm talking about the /student/1, is it working perfectly? Yes or no? Then I'm writing /student/100. In case of /student/100, is it working okay? Perfect. So this is how exactly we have created the same thing using the string data JPA. Now everyone, the remaining operations that we are having, one of the operation that pending is actually called the update operation. And apart from the update operation, we will talk about the delete operation. Then I will talk to you about the how to write down method according to your own choice. Means let's say that you wanted to find out student by name, you wanted to find out the student by marks. So how to write down method for them, that I will tell you. Apart from that, how to write down the JPQL statement, that is also I will tell you. Then we will talk about use of order by clause, use of limit clause, and then we will talk about converting the entity object into the DTO according to demand. And if time permit, then we will talk about the pagination and sorting also. Then we will talk about pagination and sorting also. So it's a good time for your break. See you at 8 past 1. Okay. Welcome back after the break. And now I'm going to split the remaining two operations. And the remaining two operations, we are having one operation that is for the update operation, and one more operation is available that is for the delete operation. See, if I'm talking about the update operation at the service IMPL, then first of all, if I wanted to update the student, the very first thing that I have to do is I have to check if the student exists with the given roll number or not. Yes or no? The very first thing to update the student, first of all, it will be good to check whether the student exists for the given roll number or not. So, student exists for the given roll number or not. Simple logic is available. I can use the same code as it is. What I can do? I can use actually this code as it is. See what exactly I am doing. The thing that I am doing is student dot find by ID. Then definitely this part is going to give me an object of optional. Using the object of optional, I am calling the or else row method. And you know that if the object is available, then object will be provided. If the object is not available, then automatically exception will be thrown. This point is clear? Yes or no? Is this point clear? Yes. And then I'm talking about the first part. Okay, object of the student is now available to me. So can I say that you are here definitely means student exist for given roll number? Clear? Yes, it is. And student already exists for the given roll number. Then nothing special I am doing is I am writing that update marks of student in the entity class object. So for this thing, I am calling simple set marks method. Then definitely the next part is we have to do is you need to call the save method. You need to call the save method to update marks in the database. Clear? Clear everyone? And this time what exactly I have to do using the student repository, I have to again call the save method, and into while calling the save method, I have to pass the object of student as a parameter. Clear or not? Clear or not? Okay, everyone. So whatever be the value that it is saving, definitely the same value will be returned from here. This is what your update operation is done. This is what your update operation is done. Thereafter, everyone, if I'm talking about the delete student by the roll number, then definitely in case of the delete student by roll number, again, I have to first check whether the student exists or not. Clear? Again, first I have to check whether the student exists or not. If the student does not exist, automatically it will throw the exception. And if the student exists, if the student exists, then what exactly we have to do is using the student repository, we have to call the method, and the name of the method is going to be delete method. Delete method. Into the delete method, I am passing the object of the student this time. And after passing the student object this time, then we are writing the message. The message that I'm writing is that student deleted successfully. Clear how this is working? Is that okay? Yes, it is. Or actually, if you do not want it to return only the string, then definitely in this condition, if I'm talking about the best solution, then the best solution is that from the controller, will it be good to return the response entity? Because from the service layer, we are getting the message only. Then this message will be given to the controller. So let me come to the controller layer. Right now, I am available on the controller layer. On the controller layer, I'm going to create the two methods. The one method that I'm going to create is for the update student. The one method that I'm going to create is for the update student. See, actually, instead of updating the entire student object, I'm actually updating only marks. So what do you think? Option number one, put mapping is good. Option number two, patch mapping is good. definitely it will be good to talk about the next type of mapping, and the next type of mapping is referred as the patch mapping. In case of the patch mapping, can I say that I wanted to accept the two parameters such that the first parameter is going to be of the roll number and the second parameter is going to be of the marks? Yes or no? Clear or not? Integer roll number is there, integer marks is there. Both the things are actually available here. Then everyone, roll is there, marks is there. This point is definitely done, definitely done, definitely done. Then using the student service, can I call the update method? Definitely we can call the update method passing both things as a parameter. So object will be provided to me as it is. This mapping is done. If I'm talking about the last type of mapping, then definitely for the last type of mapping, I have to talk about the delete mapping. Into the delete mapping, let me put the same URL pattern. The URL pattern is students, and I wanted to pass the information that is called roll. I wanted to pass the information that is called role. And this time, what exactly the thing I am doing? If I'm talking about the better return type, then definitely as a better return type, it will be good to return the response entity. Into the response entity, definitely I am going to have an object of string type. And name of the method I'm writing is, let's say, delete student by roll number. And again, the same parameter will be available to me, that is called the role. And again, we have to write down one thing that is called the path variable. Okay. After writing the path variable, then I'm writing here return student service dot calling the method that is called delete student by roll number. This time, definitely this is going to provide me a message. Once the message is available to me, once the message is available to me, then what actually I have to do? I have to write down return new response entity. Into the response entity, I have to provide the body. If I'm talking about the body, then body is going to be definitely the message. And the next part that I wanted to provide is going to be the HTTP status code. Then I have to write down here that is called HTTP status dot. This time, will it be good to return the success message? Can I return the OK? Yes or no? Can I return the OK? And let's say that if you are thinking that it will good not to return the string message, let's say that if you do not want it to return anything. So in this condition, there is one more header available. The name of the status code is called no content, that is HTTP status 204. So this is also what you can do. Clear everyone? This is also what you can do. Clear? And actually this response entity creation you should do actually for everything. This response entity creation actually you should do for every method. Okay, everyone? Path variable is actually missing in the line number 43. Yes. Thanks for the correction. Thanks for the corrections. So this is something that actually I have done. Return the status code is definitely always a good choice. So whatever message that you wanted to do, you can. So for example, I wanted to return response entity 1, 2, 3, 4. And then if I'm talking about the closing curly bracket, I have to 1, 2, 3, 4. Then what I have to do, return new response entity and with the suitable data type bracket open. So this time I'm writing return new response entity. The suitable data type is going to be definitely the student. Then the first thing I'm writing is student service dot update student, comma, 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 comma. If I'm talking about the HTTP status code, then definitely the HTTP status code that we can provide is going to be okay. Similarly, the HTTP status code here also we can provide okay. Here also we can provide okay. Here actually it will be good to provide the HTTP status code that is created. Is that clear? Everyone, is that okay? That we have to provide the HTTP status code created in case of post request. For all the requests, we can provide the code that is called get. Will it be okay, dear scholars? Yes. Okay, so same logic. I'm going to repeat again, copy, tuck. Then I'm writing the list of student here. And when I'm writing the list of student here, then this code is also working. Finally, here the same response entity I have to take from here will be good. Copy and paste. So finally, I'm returning the response entity now with the proper status messages everywhere. So I have to perform, I have to show you whether the update and delete operation are working properly or not. Let me run this application. Running this application. So first of all, I wanted to execute the request for the patch mapping. So coming to the Postman, into the Postman, the first thing that I'm talking to you is going to be the patch mapping. Into the patch mapping, first thing we are writing is the slash student. Let's say I wanted to update marks of the first student. So first select star. Marks of the student whose roll number 1 is right now 98. I wanted to reduce the marks from 98 to 48. I wanted to reduce the marks from 98 to 48. Let me run this application. When I'm running this application, you can see that I'm getting the updated object, and let's see if it is applicable here also. So everyone, change is successful. Yes or no? Perfect. That's nice. Similarly, everyone, if I am talking about the delete request, I wanted to delete the student whose roll number is 3. Let me click on the send button. I am getting the message student deleted successfully, and we are having the status code that is 200 also. That is 200 also. Okay, one thing that you should always keep into mind, if you are not returning the status code from your method, from the REST controller method, if you are not returning the status code, then there are only two default values available. The first default value is 200. That is always okay. But if there is an exception available, then in this case, the response status code will be 500. Clear, everybody? The default value of status code that is written by the control request handler method is either 200 or 500. If everything is executed successfully, then the received status code will be 200. But if there is any exception available, then the available status code will be 500. And 500 actually is for internal server error. Remember, it is not for bad request. 500 is for the internal server error. Bad request status code is applicable for 400 status code that you have to throw manually. Okay, everyone. So far, actually, whatever available into the CRUD operation, all that execution is shown to you with a proper thing. If I'm talking about the student repository, then into the student repository, has I added any method? Into the student repository, has I added any method? Okay. Now, actually, you can see one thing, that if I'm talking about the method that is called find by ID method. So definitely the find by ID method is actually only searching on the behalf of primary key only. What if I wanted to search a student by name? What if I wanted to search a student by marks? Can I do the same job also? Answer is yes. Answer is yes. So just actually a simple thing that actually I am telling you, everyone. If I'm talking about the signature of the find by ID method, so can I say this is what actually signature applicable for find by ID method in case of student object? Yes or no? Simple logic. Clear, everybody? Okay, can we have more than one student for a single name? Can we have more than one student with the same name? Please take a look at the column properties and then tell me, can we have more than one student with the same name? Answer is no. Answer is no. Okay. So like if I'm talking about the structure, so see what exactly the change I am doing. This is something that is given by Spring Data JPA automatically. This is coming from the simple CRUD repository. So what exactly I am doing? I am doing a just simple thing. Instead of find by ID, I am writing find by name method. And when I'm writing the find by name method, then I'm just changing the parameter and it is done. What exactly the case will be here? The case that is going to be here is, everyone, very, very simple. It will automatically generate the JPQL statement just by parsing the method name. Just by looking at the method name. Last time it was find by ID. This time it is find by name. So definitely can I say that into the where condition, instead of roll number, we have to use name. Yes or no? Is that clear? Where name equal to whatever be the value. And if I'm talking about whatever be the value, then definitely this value will come from the parameter name. Is that okay? Yes, it is. What field exactly we wanted to find out, sir? We are talking about the entity. So definitely this is going to be somewhat like that. Or if I'm talking about the JPQL statement, then in case of the JPQL statement, we can see that this is going to be select star from student. Let's say that this is S. So the query is going to be converted as this one. Clear? Simple JPQL statement I have written for you. Yes, you can do this, no problem. You can do this, no problem. Sir, can we specify the conditions also? Yes, you can specify the conditions also. No problem, it will work perfectly. So for example, everyone, let's say that I wanted to specify the conditions. So then I am writing here find by, and into the find by I am writing marks. Let's say I'm talking about find by, let's say I'm talking about the roll number and marks. So one thing that I'm writing find by roll, and there is one thing available that is called greater than. Then I'm writing the or symbol. After on symbol, then I'm writing here that is marks less than or equal. So just take a look at the method name. Find by roll greater than or marks less than or equal. The first parameter that actually I am mentioning here, the first parameter that actually I am mentioning here is going to be definitely the roll number. And the next parameter that actually I am going to mention here is, let's say, marks. So can I say that just by looking at this method name, just by looking at this method name, it is clearly actually showing you that you wanted to create a method for which the JPQL statement should be very much like select S from student S where the value of roll number or the value of S dot roll number should be greater than S dot roll or colon roll, or, and after the or operator we can say that S dot marks, S dot marks, it should be less than or equal to whatever be the value of parameter marks is. Clear, everybody? Is that example okay? Yes, it is. So this time actually you can see that if, like, what JPA is doing, JPA is actually parsing the method name, and on the behalf of the method name, actually your JPA is taking all the framing the JPQL statement. If by following the same convention, you wanted to create your own methods, then you can create also, no problem. It will also work for you. Clear? Is that okay? See, two things I have added. Let us do the experiment on them. First of all, we are talking about the find by name. So again, I'm going to the student service method. Into the student service method, like we have created one method, that is view student by roll number method. On the same track, we can talk about one more method that is called the view student by name method. And when I'm talking about the view student by name method, so here I'm writing parameter string name. So this method is to get student name by student detail by name. If I'm talking about the parameter this time, then the parameter is going to be name, and it is nothing but a string value for the name. And if I'm talking about the next parameter, object for this name, this is what exactly I am getting. And everyone, definitely there are chances of exception also available. If I'm talking about the implementation, then definitely the same implementation I have to provide here also. How to provide the implementation? So just actually let me copy and paste. The first annotation that I'm copying is going to be at the rate override annotation. And then the next thing that actually I have to write down is, everyone, can you see one thing? That first line I have to call is the method. The name of the method is going to be find by name method. The name of the method is going to be find by name method. And once find by name method is working, then finally we have to write down this thing also. Clear? Just one method I have created. Similar to that, let's say I wanted to view the student by roll number and marks. So I'm creating one more method. This time the return type I'm mentioning is the list of student. And let's say that by roll greater than or marks. Yet in the service layer, you can provide the method name any. You can provide the method name any at the service layer. It is not significant here actually. It is not significant here. So if I'm talking about the first parameter, then definitely the first parameter we have to write down is going to be integer roll. And the second parameter I am writing is going to be integer marks is what actually I am writing. This time using the student repository, into the student repository, we have created the method that is called find by roll number greater than or marks equal. And this is going to provide me a list of student here. This is going to provide me a list of student here, and definitely the same list of student is what exactly I have to return from here. Is that okay? Why it is not happy? Okay, this method is not available in the interface, that's why it is not happy. Because this method is not available in the interface, that's why use of @override annotation is actually creating problem for it. Java doc you should write down later on. Java doc you should write down later on. Okay. So student service IMPL, student repository, find by roll greater than, marks less than is what I have done. Student controller. So onto the student controller, I'm writing that is copy. After writing the copy, then I'm talking about the paste. So then I'm talking about the one thing that is called name. Then view student by name is what actually we are writing. Then the thing that we are writing is going to be string name. Response entity is student service, view student by name is what we are calling, passing here. Clear everybody, this method? Yes or no? Yes, it is. The same logic I have to repeat here also. So response entity, into the response entity, then we are talking about, let's say that view student by role and role or marks. Method name can be any. Both the parameters are available here. Let the parameter be available as it is. Then actually what I am doing, again, almost same code I'm going to copy paste, but this time instead of getting the simple student, I'm going to have list of student as a return value, and using the student service we have to actually call the method, and the name of the method is going to be, that is called student dot view student by roll number greater than or marks. This is what I'm writing. So two things we have done. I wanted to show you whether they are properly working or not. And because show SQL is already turned on, so we can expect that queries will also be printed. Yes, queries are also printed everywhere. Okay. Now everyone, first thing, let me run this application. Alt Shift X J. Alt Shift X B. Let it be run. And some mistake is there. The dependency error creating bean student controller defined in the file. And actually unsatisfied dependency for the student repository. Enable JPA repository means actually possible. It is actually failed to create the query for this. 1 minute. For the less than or equal, just a minute, actually might be possible that I have done some mistake while creating the method name. I have created some problem while creating the method name. Actually less than equal, it is not less than or equal. It is actually less than equal, not less than or equal. This method name is creating the problem. Let me save this. After saving this, let me relaunch this application. Save it. Less than equal, less than equal, less than equal. Yes. Then let me copy this, and the same thing I have to make changes here also. Anywhere else? Is there any problem? Everything is perfect. No problem. Let me run this application. Alt Shift X B. I'm pressing and console. So this time everything is okay. This time everything is okay. Now let me come to the controller part. And when exactly I'm coming to the controller part, then actually two methods I have added. Oh, I forgot to add the get mapping. Actually, there is one more problem, everyone. One more problem is there. Can you see that actually slash student slash role and slash student slash name is there? And when actually I'm going to hit it, ultimately I will actually land up with exception. Why exactly I'm going to land with the exception? Just let me show you one example. For example, everybody, let's say I'm talking about the get request and I'm talking about the student slash name of the student. I'm writing ABC and clicking on the send button. Can you see there is one error, that is ambiguous handler mapping? Can you see the message that there is ambiguous handler mapping? Why exactly ambiguous handler mapping? Because for student slash single parameter, for student slash single parameter, it is not able to decide which version is to call. It is not able to decide which version is to call, because simple logic, if I'm talking about the URL, and the URL, whatever be the value available, it is simple a textual value, it is simple a sequence of character, and the sequence of character will be converted into the integer or the string value according to the demand of the language. Clear, everyone? For the sequence of character 10 or for the sequence of character ABC, which version is to call, it is not able to decide. So let me actually change the name, that is student by name. And I forgot to add the mapping for this. I forgot to add the mapping for this. So for example, let's say this time I'm talking about the view by roll number and marks. Okay. So let me copy this. And after copying this, then we are talking about the student by name slash. This time I'm talking about the name ABC, clicking on the send button. Result is available to me, and let me focus on the query. Please take a look at the query. Please take a look at the query. Query is select s1 dot roll number, comma s1 dot marks, comma s1 dot name from st. Alias name is s1 underscore 0, where s1 underscore 0 dot name equal to question mark. Can I say that query is working perfectly okay, or the Hibernate is generating a proper query? Everyone, can I say that Hibernate is generating the proper query? Answer is yes. Answer is yes, Hibernate is actually generating a proper query. Let's say that I'm writing some bogus name. Into the bogus name, let's say I'm writing some name AYU. I do not have any student with that name. In this condition, proper exception message is available. Clear? Now actually when the proper message is available there, then I'm going to the next part. And after going to the next part, so I'm going to hit the next URL, and the next URL is going to be student by roll and marks. The next URL is going to be student by roll and marks. So if I'm talking about, let's say that the value of roll number I'm writing is 2, but it is greater than. So let's say that the value of roll number I'm writing 1, and the value of marks, let's say I'm writing, this is going to be, let's say 4040, or let's say value of marks I'm writing is 75. Let me hit enter. Let me hit enter. No URL found. Mistake. My bad. One thing I need to write down is the roll number. Second thing I need to write down here is marks. Let the div tool dependency be started again. Yeah, started. Clicking on the send button. 2 scholars I am getting. 2 scholars I am getting. So when I'm getting the 2 scholars, then everyone just actually take a look at the query. Just a minute. Please take a look at the query that is generated here. Can you see the query, everyone? Select s1 student dot roll number, comma marks, comma s1 dot name from st, where s1 dot roll number is greater than the first value, or s2 s1 dot marks is less than or equal to the second value. Is that clear? Based on the method name, automatically Spring Data JPA is generating the query. Clear or not? Based on the simple, you can say that method name Spring Data JPA is able to generate the query. But if you are finding that generating the method name is actually very difficult, generating the method name exactly is very difficult. Like recently I did one mistake also. Is there any better choice available? Answer is yes, better choice is available. Okay. Did you remember the name to query annotation? Did you remember at the rate name to query annotation? Yes, it is. See, right now actually when you want JPA to generate the query according to the method name, so there is only one problem available. For the simple method name, definitely you will be able to do that, no problem. But on the other hand, everybody, let's say that if you wanted to generate a complex query, then to generate a complex query, actually thinking a method name in the first attempt will be very difficult. Second thing, using a very long method name everywhere in the code will make your code kind of unreadable. Clear? So if I'm talking about the above approach, then definitely the above approach is actually suitable for simple query. The above approach of using the above approach is actually suitable for the simple query generation. This is actually suitable for the simple query generation. But on the other hand, if I'm talking about the next part, then the next part is going to tell another simple thing. The above approach is suitable for the simple query generation, and definitely to actually create method with complex queries. We have to actually use another approach, that is the query annotation. There is another approach available, that is called query annotation. When you are using the query annotation, so definitely method name is insignificant. This time actually method name is going to be insignificant. So for example, everyone, let's say that I'm using @query annotation. Into the @query annotation, this time again I'm writing a JPQL statement. So while writing the JPQL statement, for example, let's say I am writing the query is going to be, let's say, select as from. The name of the entity class is student. Select as from student as where as dot marks between as dot marks between. Then I'm writing the first parameter, that is called start, and then I'm writing the next value, that is called end value, or it will be good to call the begin and the end value. Is that clear, everybody? How to write down the query? First, you have to use that query annotation, and within the @query annotation, you have to write down your query very much like a JPQL statement. Earlier, when the SB101, when you were writing the JPQL statement, then while writing the JPQL statement, you were actually using the positional parameter. Remember? Question mark 1, question mark 1, question mark 2. If you have not used named parameter, colon, then the parameter name, set parameter method. So this type of parameter in which actually you are writing the name of the parameter, they are actually referred as the named parameter. They are actually referred as the named parameter. And this time what exactly I am returning? I am returning a list of students. Method name, you can write down any. Let's say that the name of the method that I'm writing is ABC. How many parameters do I need to have? Two parameters I need to have. The first parameter I need to have is the begin, and the next parameter that I need to have is going to be for the end. Is that clear? Yes, it is. Now, one more thing that actually you have to remember, by default, even if you are keeping the named parameter name as well as parameter name same, still you have to use one annotation, and this annotation is actually called @param annotation. This annotation is actually called param annotation, is what actually you have to use. And query cannot be resolved as a type. So we are talking about query. Oh, I forgot to use. Yeah, this is perfect. Then if I'm talking about the next annotation is called param. The annotation param must define the attribute value. So just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. One thing. Now this is working perfectly. So possibly because I'm using the same name, so that's why it is, I think, not required. Let us do an experiment. Let us do that. First of all, just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. Control Z, param annotation. Let me open this annotation. Target type is definitely parameter. Retention policy is one time, and it is having the value also. But value is actually, see, this annotation is used to bind. method parameter to query via the named parameter. So value is a compulsory attribute that actually I have to use. It's okay. Value is a compulsory attribute that actually I have to use. So one parameter I have defined. Now everyone, so first method is created. This method is going to search according to the marks range. So controller is created, repository is created. After the repository, then I'm talking about the student service. And when I'm talking about the student service, then definitely I am going to create a method. That is, the name of the method I am writing is view students by marks range. First thing we are writing is going to be integer start. And definitely the next thing that we are going to write down is going to be integer end. Copy this marks, going to student service IMPL, and into the student service IMPL, then I am writing the override annotation. After writing the override annotation, I am available here, and definitely I am going to call the method that is called, the name of the method is called ABC. Start range and ending range both is what exactly I am already providing. Then it is returning me in the form of a list of student. Same signature I have to apply here also. So I am available into the student service. Into the student service I have defined. Okay, no problem. No problem. Line number 24, 25, everyone. Is that okay? Line number 24, 25. Everyone okay? That's good. Going to the next part. Going to the next part. The next part is that everyone, if I'm talking about the student service interface, I have created a simple method that is view student by marks range. Yes. The first thing that we are writing is name. Second is writing end. Okay, 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 okay. Then everyone, I have provided the implementation here also, passing the start and end here. Actually, I have written the parameter name here begin. Here actually, I have written the parameter name that is called begin. Yes, now this is okay. Now this is okay. 1 second, everyone. Not working. Not working. So coming to the controller class, and after coming to the controller class, we wanted to view the student by marks range, such that we have to specify the 2 marks there. So again, get mapping there. So we are writing student by marks range is what I am writing. And into the student by marks range, first thing we have to specify is the begin, and the next thing we have to specify is the end. Response entity list of students. So we are talking about view students by marks range. And when we are talking about the view students by marks range, then first thing we have to write down is going to be begin. And the second thing that we have to write down is end. Same parameter we are copying here also. Name of the method I have to change. The name of the method is going to be view student by marks range. HTTP status okay is done. Let me once try to run this application. Alt Shift X B is what I have to press. Yes, everything executed successfully. Let me go to Mr. Postman, and I'm talking about the Postman. So going to here, just a minute. Let me copy and going to this part. So I'm writing about that one slash. I'm talking about the marks range. So marks range is 48 and 66. So first of all, let's say I'm talking about the 48 and 66. After writing 48 and 66, I'm hitting enter. Am I getting both? Yes or no? Yes, it is. And let me come to the generated query. If I'm talking about generated query, then by looking at the generated query, can you see that it is completely working on the between and operation? It is working on the between and operation. Clear, everyone? Yes, it is. You can do that also. So in the first example, actually, I have used name parameter for you. Apart from the name parameter, we are having concept of positional parameter also. We are having concept of positional parameter also. So how to pass the positional parameter? This is the next thing that I'm going to tell you. So if I'm talking about the positional parameter. Then for the positional parameter, you have to write down the question mark one kind of thing. Is that okay? If I'm talking about this example, this is an example of the named parameter. And if I'm talking about this thing, then definitely this is what an example of the position parameter is. Automatically, your position parameter will be mapped to your method parameter. Is that okay? Position parameter will automatically map to this parameter. This is what, again, one thing that you can do. And so far in the methods, we are actually using the select star everywhere. Yes or no? So far everywhere we are using select star. Is that clear? Instead of specifying some specific column name, we are using select star. So can we use a specific column also? Yes, we can use a specific column also, no problem. How to use a specific column? To use a specific column, let's say that I wanted to find out only name. So I'm writing select s dot name from s dot student where s dot marks is more than, where x dot marks is more than question mark 1. So if I'm talking about this parameter, then this parameter is actually referred as the positional parameter. Is that clear, everybody? This parameter is referred as the positional parameter. This time, can I expect that it is going to return me a list of string? This time, can I expect that the method is going to return me a list of string? Yes or no? Definitely, because there is only one thing available. So by default, we are going to get a list of string. When we are going to get the list of string, so I am taking that get name by marks is what actually I am writing. Get name by marks is what actually I am writing. And here I am passing the parameter. The parameter is going to be integer marks. Is that clear? Is that clear, everyone? How this is working? So method name is insignificant when you are using at the rate query annotation. Then definitely method name is turning completely insignificant. Again, what I have to do, the thing that actually I have to do is I have to call the student service. And when I'm talking about the student service, then in case of the student service, public list of string is what we are talking about. We are talking about the thing that is called view student by name. Thereafter, the thing that I'm writing is you should specify the one thing only, that is called integer. Marks is the only parameter that actually we have to specify. Let me copy this. After copying this part, then I wanted to write down the same thing here. When I'm writing the same thing here, then actually using the student repository, I have to call the method. The name of the method is going to be, what was the name of the method? Find by marks. I forgot. Get name by marks. The name of the method we are calling is get name by marks, and whatever be the marks is there, we have to specify them as it is. On the controller side, again, we have to specify the get mapping. And while specifying the get mapping, how many parameters are required? Only one parameter is required. So we are writing that is get students by marks is the name I'm using, and here I have to specify the parameter that is called marks, and this parameter is definitely going to be of type integer. So let me copy this, and then actually the same parameter marks I have to copy here. What was the name of the method? Student service view student by name is a wrong name. It will be good to call that is view student by marks. Yeah, view student by marks is what we are writing. Copy and paste. What actually it is going to give me? It is going to give me a list of student. It is again going to give me a list of student here. What is the return type? What is the return type? Return type is list of string. List of string. Now better. Now better. Let me relaunch this application. Let me relaunch this application. Okay. After relaunching this application, then I'm going here, and after actually going here, then I'm writing here one more thing that is called slash. What is the URL pattern? The URL pattern is student by marks slash. Then I'm talking about marks. Let's say I'm talking about the 45, then hitting the send button. And when I'm hitting the send button, so both the students whose marks are more than 45, they are available here. Let's say I'm talking about the 50 marks. In case of the 50 marks, both students, only one student is there. Let me write down the next, that is 80. In case of 80, no student is available. So we are actually getting an empty list. Okay. Well, everyone, how many of you are thinking that the content is too much for the today? How many of you are thinking that content is too much for the day? That's good. Very less scholars are thinking about the same. Actually, this is, you can say that very simple. This is actually very simple. That's why there is no logic of spending so much amount of time on this. That's why actually in a single class, we come to know that entire hierarchy we come across. Apart from the entire hierarchy, we come across how to create the custom query, what actually we have to take care while creating the custom query, how to write down the method name, how JPA is generating, so on, so on. Tomorrow, actually, slightly, I will extend this example. I will show you how to use the order by clause. I will show you how to use the limit clause. Apart from that, we will talk about how to use the same thing for the DML operation also. How to use the same thing for the DML operation also is what actually we will discuss tomorrow. But for the tomorrow's class, before coming into the class, please make sure to learn the association mapping properly, because tomorrow I am going to take example of the association mapping also. Is that clear? Association mapping is going to be vital part of tomorrow, and tomorrow we will talk about the project Lombok also. Well, that's all for the day, everybody. This example will be shared to you along with the, actually in the file, I have nothing to share with you, because today we completely had discussion about whatever we have already covered yesterday. So I don't have anything text file to share. Today, actually only one file will be shared to you. That is the zip file of this project along with the database. Okay. Now let me turn off the recording.